All right, I'll call the meeting to order and I will ask that we stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Well, it says we're going to do a roll call, but this is the Board of Appeals, so we are all here. So we can elect a new chair if you would like to. I'm all right with that, if one of you would like to do it.
Stay as we are.
Okay. So we'll stay and I'll remain the chair. So we are here to hear the appeal for an Angel's Wing. I'm going to assume that that is you. And so we're going to just review the information briefly. And then we'll let
Deborah.
yes, Deborah. Thank you. And here it is right here. Deborah, we can certainly let you speak and then the code enforcement will speak and hopefully we'll be able to come to some sort of an agreement on this issue this evening. Okay. We're not going to go past 8 o'clock because we don't serve breakfast in the morning. So we have been here some nights, but we'll come back if we had to. Okay. So. Do you want me to leave this on if I'm going to ask them questions?
Sorry.
Do you want me to leave the mic on?
It's up to you. If you can remember to turn it on and off.
I'll push it back a little bit. Did you guys have time to read all through this?
Yes.
Okay. And I had as well. I just had a couple things. And I wasn't sure, Deborah, did you send us stuff twice? Because some of this seemed like we had some of it. Noted. Okay, yeah. Do you guys want to take a little bit longer to read it over or do you think? Okay, I did too. I just wasn't expecting another packet. I had stapled a couple of things together, but so I did think I had some things twice, so. I don't remember what we did last time, but you mind if Deborah goes first? Okay, so.
My name is Deborah York. I'm the director of an Angel's Wing, and I also turn on the mic.
Learn from my mistake.
My name is Deborah York. I am the director of an Angel's Wing. I also manage the Mechanic Falls House of Women and Children. You all have my letter that I sent in. And basically, I mean, we're a nonprofit. We are in the business of saving lives. We moved into the Mechanic Falls property and was setting it up to operate. And to be perfectly honest with you, we got plenty of calls of women that needed a place to go. A couple of them in particular that were homeless. And we allowed them to come in and help us finish setting up. So I can't argue that. What I would like to bring to your attention is we did everything that was required of us except for that fence. The fence took a little longer than expected. And we were in compliance with the exception of the fence that I mean, we agreed to it, but to be fair, it's not something that you require every residential person that moves into a home to put up so the neighbors don't have to see you. Um, Taking that into consideration and the fact that we are a nonprofit and we're struggling to survive and save these women and children from substance and alcohol use and being on the streets, I ask that you reconsider the fine that you've imposed due to financial hardship because we are a nonprofit and we are living paycheck to paycheck, so to speak. And I would like to invite Ron up. Ron can go more in depth with what I was saying as far as the fence and
Who is Ron?
the laws of,
Who is Ron?
Ron is, I'll let him introduce.
Okay.
Okay.
He's here from the Maine Association of Recovery Residences. Excuse me.
Oh, thank you. So we'll know who you are. Whoops.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ron Springel, Springel. I'm not a country lawyer. I'm a country doctor, retired from medicine. For 30 years, I specialize in addiction medicine. And when I retired 10 years ago, I began working with what was then a group of operators in the Portland area that wanted to become nationally recognized as the main affiliate of the National Alliance for Recovery Residences, started in 2011. So in 2016, MAR was formed as a 501c3 nonprofit, and I'm currently the executive director. I'm also pleased to introduce Joshua Leonard behind me, who is the president, newly elected president of the board, a long-term member. Both he and I are persons in long-term recovery from substance use disorder. I started working with recovery houses as early as 1986, so I have a long history with sober living, and was very pleased to be able to work with MAR. We currently have 95 recovery houses with 1,145 beds throughout the state. But Angel's Wing here in Mechanics Falls is only one of two that allow women and women with children, the other being in Machias, a place called Safe Harbor, which has been operating from Healthy Acadia for several years now successfully. But Mrs. York is the largest of these operators with her facility, housing more women and children than any other place in the area, in the entire state, which is quite remarkable. During this time, I've had the experience of attending many town meetings, and I could probably list off the top of my head at least a dozen in the last few years. Most recently in Whitefield, in Winthrop, in Sanford, in Farmington. And the themes are pretty much the same. What we find is what we'll call, inadvertent discrimination, just from lack of information, and it's because that most small towns, especially even with the town council, are not expert on Title III of the Fair Housing Act or the Americans with Disabilities Act or some of other rules around that, and so we take an opportunity to provide as much education and information as we can. Recovery residences since 2019 have been defined in Maine statute. Before that time, you would not find recovery residence anywhere in Maine statute. Not a sober living residence, but recovery residence, which is the state definition. They meet that state definition, and they were certified by us at the national standard. What we find is that towns and municipalities sometimes, again, mostly inadvertently, treat them other than a single family home. And the test is, what would you do if a family from Kansas moved into that residence? Would you make them put up a fence? And why? So why did Deborah York have to put up a fence because that's the basis of this fine, for failure to do it in a timely way. And you wouldn't have someone else do it. And we would consider that to be an inadvertent discrimination. Therefore, if that's true, then the fine should also be considered to be improper. So it's really on that basis that we think that this appeal should be granted, that the fence really shouldn't have been required in the first place. And therefore the fine should be rescinded.
Well, thank you. Right, and one of the things if this is on me, as we continue on, any public comment was limited to 5 minutes, which you were absolutely fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so we'll move on and let Tom give his side of. I think he's going to be as quick as you are, Deborah.
Hi there. All right, so the premise for this was the violation of our ordinances within 200.2. Letter E specifically is what was mentioned, which is the occupancy of a building.
Can you tell me where that is in here?
The pointing to it is within the first few pages there.
Mm.
I don't know that I have the ordinance directly written in it. I think they can put it in. Let me double check.
No, I'm good.
So 202.2 basically states that occupancy of the rehabilitated building may occur
Mhm.
and that they need a certificate of occupancy in order to do so, in order to have people actually occupy the building. So the fence was agreed upon by them in the Board of Appeals meeting. That was part of it. There was also, when I had done my initial walkthrough for life safety, which I would do in a normal residence, prior to people moving in, there was some GFCI issues as well, that I wasn't told were addressed until I went through the fence walkthrough as well. So there was the other reason for that. Normally in any sort of situation, a change of use to any building would be a planning board review as well. So that would be the case. The fence was the only requirement for doing this, which they also agreed to, like I had stated before. So that's where I'm at.
Was the fence the only reason why the occupancy permit wasn't given until December 17th? Or
I'm just looking at that.
So the fence needing to be put up was the condition for planning board. So that was what was holding up occupancy, as well as a GFCI issue when I walked through in the kitchen and one of the bathrooms, which when I walked back through to check the fence, was informed that part of the reason that the GFCIs weren't working correctly was because one of them wasn't being tripped properly behind, I think it was some cutting boards or something like that in the kitchen that we couldn't see. So. But yes, the fence was the primary reason for the occupancy, is just because that was the conditional agreement from planning board.
when did they notify you that the house is ready for to have the permit looked at for occupancy?
I believe it was that same day that I had
December?
issued in December. Yes,
So even, okay, because according to my,
it was within 48 hours of me issuing occupancy
Okay.
that I went out for the fence.
they have stated that in the letter that they began occupancy
Right.
As of November 7th.
Yeah, because if you look at the last page in that
Yeah.
pamphlet there,
Yeah.
we had received a
So-
letter stating that somebody had been living there prior to my issuing occupancy.
And who sent that letter? Was it Deborah?
It was an Angel's Wing. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure who brought it in, but
You said on October 9th, the occupant received permits and approvals relating to the renovation of the rehab. And on January 7th, 2025, occupant submitted a letter to the town asserting that an individual had moved into the building on November 7th.
right, which is that paper in the back.
Yeah, and whereas the code enforcement officer did not issue a certificate of occupancy until December 17th. But you didn't go there until 2 days before the 17th, you said?
Approximately, yeah.
Approximately.
It was within that time frame.
Did they give any reasons why why it was occupied on November 7th?
When I went in there, I did see somebody walking around. I specifically asked if they had anybody living there. I was told that they did have the managerial staff that was moving stuff in living there at the time. I was going to let that portion of things slide. Just because if you're moving stuff in, if you're getting stuff ready, I understand moving is tough. And
Yeah.
if you want me to treat this as a residence, then I get wanting to unpack and get ready for the occupants that will be coming in from general assistance or the other avenues that come in from their field.
So the crux of their appeal today is for the $350.
Yes, $350.
Here tonight,
So the $100 of that is for the violation itself. And then 250 was for the legal counsel that I had to seek to get to this point.
Deborah,
but I see that on November that they charged the full $750. The occupant and on November, is that correct?
Deborah, can we ask you some questions?
When once it moved in,
Okay, great. Was your tenant charged $750 in November, even though the building wasn't approved yet for occupancy?
I wish I had my previous house manager here. She could answer that better. But if that's a something that she signed, then
And as Tom had said, inside the home for occupancy, do you know when that had been fixed?
one was to my understanding, it was a mistake. There was nothing wrong with it. And the other one was fixed right away.
You need proof?
As I said, I wasn't notified until I went through the walkthrough for the fence that was taken care of.
And it was taken care of, and that was.
From
the
what I
intent.
could see, yes. I
Everything.
went in with my tester and checked the GFCI again and it didn't trip properly. So, or it didn't really like it had before. So.
I think it's my cell phone.
Okay,
there's some heavy breathing going on.
well, it's not me. No. Okay, so we don't really know when it got fixed, that occupancy inside would have been approved because of the electrical.
I can't answer that with a definite answer.
But we
That would
know
be-
it was fixed on December 7th,
Yes.
17, 14.
17th. Did you go
17th.
through on the 7th or the 17th? of
I got it
December?
I believe it was somewhere around the 17th, not the
This
7th.
letter is dated the 17th, so. But I do have one more question. Can you bring up this letter? Yeah, certificate.
To be honest, I could get Luke Perrin on the phone. Did most of the work with Tom on the efficiencies. If that would be helpful.
Just, Tom, on the 9th is when the planning board approved the changeover.
October 9th is when planning board approved the condition of the conditional.
And this MMR
Prior
play
to this.
facility and has since conformed to the conditions outlined on that day by the board. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Our town attorney isn't here. If is the person that she's talking about that worked with you, is that an electrician?
The building owner, correct?
Building owner? No, and he's the one who did your repairs inside the building?
Correct.
Would it make, legally, would it make a difference to us if the repairs inside the building for human occupancy were done before anyone moved in?
I don't know, solely based on the fact that, I mean, If I wasn't informed about it in some way, shape or form until the day of, he could just say that and then
And how?
My question is, when did our code enforcement officer, was told that the building can be inspected for the occupancy permit? What
You-
what date?
Yeah, when did you, we got this letter. That's where I'm getting the 7th from. We got it on the 6th. That someone had moved in, but you didn't have the occupancy yet.
When did the,
Could someone have come in sooner to say everything inside is done? We just don't have our fence up. Can we do occupancy?
Everything inside was done right away. So within a week of being deficient. One was a mistake. It was actually operating properly. And the other one he fixed that week. The fence took several weeks after that, I believe. But I can't say definite dates. Luke would be able to tell you that.
Tom, if Deborah had come to you saying there was a delay on the fence, would that have delayed someone being able to move in there? If the inside electrical had been fixed?
I would say yes, only because the agreed upon piece that I was also issuing the occupancy for
Was-
overall was what they agreed upon on October
Okay.
9th with the planning board at that piece. So without them going, I think, back to planning board maybe and saying, hey, this is done. Can I get some kind of variance on the fence? I don't know that I would have been able to sign off properly
Yeah.
on occupancy.
Deborah, did you ask the planning board about the fence when they asked you to put it up prior to moving in? Did you have that conversation with the planning board?
I did not. The night of the meeting, we just agreed to the terms. We didn't want to upset the town at us. We were doing what we needed to do to be able to operate.
I don't understand. Upsetting the town, I don't, what do you mean by that?
By the town.
Yeah, upsetting the town.
Well, I mean, there were town residents here voicing their concerns. We had the council voicing their concerns. So we just basically agreed to the terms
Yeah.
so we could move forward.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Why didn't anybody call Tom saying you could come and take a look at the electrical?
I would have to get Luke on the phone. I believe he did, and I think there was an email exchange, but I can't confirm that because I wasn't involved. I know Luke told me that it was all set and that we were just waiting on the fence, and he had reached out to Tom. That's all I can speak on.
Okay, and so you're filing the appeal, but you can't really tell us anything.
I'm filing the appeal because you're fining us for moving in early.
Correct, which.
Well, no, not
which-
moving in early, moving in because you didn't receive an occupancy permit.
Right, you didn't have.
There's a
occup-
difference.
There, yeah,
Wasn't anyone was not moving in, was just the permit had to be approved by Tom before anybody could actually move
Live
in
there.
to living there. And that, there's a little confusion there. Why on November 7th, you had someone in there, but you didn't get the permit? Until Tom went in there. Someone contacted Tom to go in and say it was all right. And Tom went in on the
17.
17th.
This is the 4th recovery home shared living situation we've opened. And we've never had to go in front of the town to get approval or occupancy permits to move in. We just move in and start our program. To my understanding, Janet Mill passed a law saying that we were considered a single dwelling household. So to know that we absolutely had to go in front of the town, I've never done it before, but I did that with Mechanic Falls out of respect for your town.
Well,
For me, any place has to have an occupancy permit. And I can see why whoever directed you here, that building's been sitting empty for quite a while. And you probably could see that when you went in.
So if the apartment building down the road went up for rent and I wanted to rent it, I'd have to come in front of the town to get an occupancy permit.
I think I would be referring you to the town manager for that.
But yeah,
So I'm confused.
even though you didn't get a permit, you know you needed a permit to have someone move in, you still had someone move in and charge them rent. Is that correct?
If I may for a moment, just to kind of play off of her
Sure.
analogy for a minute
Sure.
here. The building down the street, if that was already an apartment building and you had decided that you wanted to turn an apartment space into an office type space, then yes, I would have to give you a permit at that point for a conditional occupancy of some kind for turning that space into an office.
Right.
So that's the fact of the matter is that this was a nursing home prior to and is now turning into, I guess, what we would quantify as a residential home or a boarding home of some sort, changes the use of occupancy, which would then require planning board.
So would that, in that case where Luke rented us the property, would the fine actually be against him for that?
I guess that would be something you would take up with him, because that would turn into a civil matter on that end. I'm just going for the entity that
But
is
I'm just,
renting out the space
but
that
I'm
I
just
that I
the
made
renter.
that I made the agreement with was who got the NOV.
Okay.
Does anyone else from the public want to speak? Yeah, you can come right up.
You have to identify yourself first and.
Yes, sir. My name is Joshua Leonard. I'm the president of the Maine Association of Recovery Residences. Sorry for my attire. Usually when I show up to forums like this, I like to be a little bit more formal. So I can't really speak on any type of ordinance here in your individual city. I can't speak on any type of contractual matter that is dealing with any two parties. What I can kind of talk about is kind of practice and principle of what we do with the Maine Association of Recovery Residences, what our purpose is, and what we're trying to accomplish. I myself run a very, very small nonprofit sober house. We're a 10-bed recovery house in Portland, Maine. And one thing that I can say is I think we're all probably on the same page when it comes to the addiction crisis that we have going on, the amount of people who are kind of flooding into the streets of not only big cities, but in rural counties and rural cities as well. We're kind of seeing this. And a lot of times small cities are seemingly sometimes more impacted because small cities often aren't prepared for this type of thing. And so what we've done, I know what Deborah have done and what countless recovery residences have done across the board is we're trying to be the avenue in which those people who are living on the streets and kind of impacting those communities finally do have a place to go that's local to them to be able to come and get them off the street and be able to start on a pathway to recovery. The one thing that I ended up finding, especially as a small operator myself, is our margins are very, very thin. So when it comes to, you know, the money that we have coming in from the residents living in the program, to, you know, we're basically breaking even every year. Actually, I think the previous year we ended up in the red by a few $1,000s. So just understanding those margins and the impact that a lot of these fines do end up having if they do accrue on top of some of the normal functional kind of expenses and some of the problems that we have as far as maintaining viability of recovery housing, they really do become impactful. You know, when I look at a couple $100 here and there, sometimes it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But when it really does add up to the viability of recovery housing and making sure we're able to give people sustainable housing where they can pursue their recovery, it actually means a whole lot to us. I guess the point that I would get at is when it comes to these type of fines, it sounds like a lot of the conditional matters for the safety of the residents itself were met. And I think that's a key point to really focus on, that the House, generally speaking, with the changes that were made for, the electrical concerns I think some of the issues pertaining to the fence, well, I understand, the contractual obligation when it comes to those type of things. When it comes to conditional reality of people actually living in the residence, a fence really isn't going to make that much of a difference. And I can assure you that when it comes to the concerns of why the fence was being asked to be put up, the Maine Association of Recovery Residences and what we're here to do is to be sure that the residents themselves are abiding by ethical standards, being sure that they don't have some of the really bad stuff you've heard about in sober housing and some of the really unethical practices you may have heard about, to make sure those things aren't going on. So the recovery residence that's coming into your neighborhood is a positive reflection on the community and a positive and safe environment for people going into them. So I think that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We can take a vote. I think we have enough.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
May I?
yes, of course you may.
So, for me, it's a very simple matter. While I appreciate where Josh and Deborah are coming from, at the end of the day, I was here that night when Deborah agreed to the conditions. And the reason why the fence is such a big deal, and it is a big deal because of two reasons. Number one, citizens wanted that fence because it was a big deal to the neighbor. Number two, it's important because she agreed to it. And now to say, oh, well, we were basically there, but so what? The fence was, no. Because when I realized I received a general assistance application that was dated for November 7th, initially, I had not had a conversation with Thomas about them until sometime in December, in which, as you have the paperwork, finally, the certificate of occupancy was given mid-December. Well, either rules matter or rules don't. Which is it? If rules matter, something she agreed to was not completed, and therefore they finally got the certificate of occupancy, but long after somebody had moved in and they were charging rent to them. So they were front running the situation because, oh, well, it's close enough. No, it's not close enough. So for me, it's a very simple matter. They had people in there before they had the occupancy. And it goes beyond just this simple matter, even though we're a small town, we're not big city and all that, but either a certificate of occupancy matters, regardless if you're Hannaford, an Angel's Wing, or Tom's Shoe Store, or it doesn't. If it matters, then there needs to be a penalty for those that break the rule of the occupancy. In this case, in reaching out to our attorney, we come up with what we thought was a very sympathetic penalty, which was $100 plus attorney fees. So I hope as you deliberate this, that you'll see it as I see it. It's a simple matter, rules matter, and her agreement mattered. Thank you.
I was thinking along the same lines as that. Do you have any questions for either one of them? Anyone?
Well, questions have been answered. It wasn't so much that, Tom said, the fence was not the issue for the occupancy permit. He said if he had known about,
He
they
would,
had come to him, still with the fence, we're gonna have that done. As long as the electrical was done, you would have given the occupancy permit. Is that correct, Tom?
At least then suggested that we go
Suggested.
back in front of planning board
Yeah.
prior to, so that they could issue
They could still, yeah.
one way or another on that variance. Yes.
Well, I feel because I think the town is no way it's preventing this home from existing or coming into this area region. In fact, we do need it. We do as much as we can. However, you gotta dot the i's and cross the t's no matter what you do. If you're getting a little bit slippage in doing the small things, what else are you missing out on for the residents or for your people who require these places? And I think it's important for people to be responsible for what they're doing. And if they're misaligned, I know the money is a very difficult thing to occur, but at the same time, the town has paid some money in legal expenses for this tonight's meeting. And the way I see it, I think the Angel House is still responsible for the fine, as stated.
Chris, any questions?
I have no questions.
Because for me, I think you're doing good work.
I
But,
can have a response from Luke if you're going to hear it.
well, go ahead. Go up to the mic though.
Okay.
It would have been better if he could have been.
He was told the outlets were, he as in Tom was told the outlets were fixed, that it was just one of them that was tripped. Yeah. He was told, meaning Tom, the outlets were fixed and that it was just one of them that was tripped. He knew about the fence being done and that the installer was behind. I met with him in October and told him the fence guy was a month out. He said it needed to be up. That was his response.
And what day was that? That he sent Tom an email?
He said October. He didn't say
Yeah.
a specific date.
It would have behooved you to have him come in this evening, I think, but.
I tried.
Again, my concern is you put someone in a residency that didn't have an occupancy permit and the line of work that you're in. I don't know how that would sit for things, but I, for one, am not gonna override the planning board. And I do understand that the money is a lot for a nonprofit. I absolutely do understand that, but again, we do have to follow the rules, and what we would do tonight for you, if we overrode the planning board for you, we would need to override for everyone, and that is my thought.
Yeah, it would cause a,
Yeah, it's going to roll, and
yeah.
I'm not going to do that to anybody. A rule.
I think my only concern is, I believe, I agree that we agreed to put up a fence. But why were we required to put up a fence? You have to ask yourself, and why was that the only reason we weren't issued that occupancy permit?
that's not the issue tonight.
It's just the fine, and that's a good question, Deborah, that you should have asked the planning board.
I should
'cause
have.
We cannot answer that.
I should have.
Our job is to make sure that things were followed as set forth by the town statute. And I think on my part, when we vote, I think that Tom has followed what the planning board set forth. And I don't see where we can go any different.
I'm in complete agreement.
So,
Okay, so we do need to vote. I'm not sure how to word this, to vote that we uphold Tom's decision. We uphold the code enforcement's decision and to do the fine.
we denied the waiver. Is
Yeah,
it, we
were
denied the
you-
waiver to pay the fine and that's what the, you point out six things.
fine.
Now therefore the parties agree as follows. Occupant admit to a violated section 200-2.2. Occupant agrees to hereby comply with the LUO and applicable town ordinances respecting the building and property. And number 3, upon execution of the agreement, occupant shall pay to the town penalty of $350, representing $100 citation in the town's reasonable attorney fees. 4, upon occupant's execution of this agreement, town's receipt of payment of penalty provided in paragraph 3. Town releases all claims against occupant. Except with the respect for the above mentioned violation, noting within this agreement shall constitute a waiver or modification of the town's right to enforce the LU.
This is what he sent to her.
And number 6, this agreement constitutes the entire agreement of the parties, so.
So I think the vote is that we're going to deny the waiver for the. So all those in favor of denying the waiver. Any name? All right. We're upholding the planning board. decision.
So I call this meeting over. We're done.
We are done. We are going to adjourn our meeting.
That's now our own, it hasn't been changed.
It's gonna be-
6:42. 6:42.
7:42.
7:42. Thank you. No,
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 Is it
6:42.
6:42?
Right now it's 5:42.
Oh, yeah.
We have to get a clock.
We. There it is. 6:42.
It was very nice meeting you. Yes, I was going to actually give it to Tom to. keep-
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
I don't think any of you acted properly. This is in legal terms called, the fruit of the poison tree. Like if a legal search warrant, we will be fine. Municipal. The, pressure out there for your work for this time. Agreement, and, there's no legal basis for that. That's discriminating.
Well- But that's what we didn't come here for that.
So we have no, we have nothing further to talk.